It is so good to be with each and every one of you. My name is Don Cravins, and I'm very blessed to serve as the Senior Vice President of Policy for the National Urban League and run our Washington Bureau. It is so good to be with all of you today in this beautiful building. I hope you've had an opportunity to partake in some of the treats and the delights. We have a great caterer from my home state of Louisiana, and I try to bring him. Yes, let's give him a round of applause. Trey Creole Catering. So if you need a good caterer, use him. But we are so honored to have all of you today and tonight to be here for this, what we hope is the beginning of a continuous dialogue forever. Not over just the next couple of years, but forever. The black and brown communities of this country, we see one another when stuff hits the fan, Domingo. We end up at the same meetings. I'd see Brent, I see Cindy at many of those events, and yet we realize when things are not good that we've got many of the same things in common, but we don't ever come together when things are good, to plan and to plot and to make sure that we're speaking to one another. And so this was an idea that Cindy and I had, that we would, after the elections, we would get together, we'd talk about the elections, we talk about the outcomes of the elections in an unpartisan, nonpartisan, bipartisan, any partisan way you want to make it, because what we realize is that our communities have a lot at stake in this, had a lot at stake in this last election. And so that was the intent behind this election. And so I'm so honored that the Urban League and LULAC are here together tonight to talk about this election and what it means to the African American community, what it means to the Latino community, and how we can work together going forward. I am honored to be joined by the national president of LULAC, Mr. Domingo Garcia, who is joining us today. And Cindy taped our podcast last week, and after it was over, I went off on my diatribe of what's wrong with America and what we need to be doing, and she says, "You're going to love Domingo." I don't know what that means. But you and I talked. Yeah, we'll figure it out. I want to just tell you a little bit about the National Urban League, for those of you who may not be as familiar with the National Urban League. We were founded in 1910 when black people were leaving the Deep South during Jim Crow in search of a better tomorrow, a better day for their children. And so they went to New York and Washington, D.C. and Baltimore and really all over Detroit, looking for opportunity, looking for a home, looking for an education, looking for health care, and looking for a job. And since 1910, we've been fighting those same battles for African Americans and others. We don't close our doors to anyone when they walk into the doors of the Urban League. We've got 90 affiliates all across America in 36 states plus the District of Columbia. And we have buildings and places that every day, Domingo, you can go to get housing counseling or after-school tutoring or learning how to be a better parent. And so we're very proud of the work we do. We serve 2 million people each year. And so we're very, very proud of the work we do. One of the things we undertook recently, though, is we had a very strong civic engagement plan to make sure that African Americans understood the importance of this election, but more importantly, participated in this election. And so my boss, Mark Morial, who apologized he could not be here tonight to join you. We've got our Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow. We got to get our fiscal year 19 budget passed. So we're going to be working on that tomorrow. But he apologizes he couldn't be here. But that is what Mark wanted for this last election. And so what I want to do tonight is I'm going to start and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the election from the Urban League lens. And then Domingo, I'm going to introduce him, our distinguished guest, and he's going to talk to you about the elections from the LULAC lens. And then hopefully, after that's over, we can have a dialogue and a discussion. But we are with family tonight. Family rules apply. We want to be able to have an open and honest dialogue about some of the things that occurred in the last election. So I'll go ahead and get started. This is just a landscape of kind of where we are. And as you know, the election is constantly changing because they're still counting votes and in some places probably still suppressing some votes. But the fact is, Democrats so far have picked up a net of about 30 seats in the House. And what we see is there's still about 10 races that are undecided. And so right now, the current tally is about 225 to 200. Since the election night, as you know, Democrats have picked up about 3 House seats, while the Republicans have picked up 1. And in the undecided races, Democrats have taken the lead in 3 of those races to give them an overall advantage in 6 out of the 10. So the numbers are still coming in. We're still tallying votes. We will see. We're still praying in many of those elections. Prayer counts. Senate, Republicans currently hold 51 of the 100 seats. 47 of the seats have been held by the Democrats. Florida is still undecided. Senator Nelson is still, his race is still undecided. Mississippi is going to head to a runoff on November 27th. And so the biggest shifts we saw, and what we saw just very recently, is Ms. Sinema picked up her seat. She picked up a seat in Arizona on yesterday. And again, the Republicans have a lead in the Florida race against Senator Nelson, but that lead is narrowing. So there is a recount, as you know, that's going on in Florida. Governors, Democrats picked up 7 governor seats, giving them control of 23 governorships. Republicans control 25. There are 2 races that are still undecided, Georgia and Florida, which are races that obviously we at the Urban League were very, very interested. We have very strong affiliates in Georgia and Florida. There are a lot of black people in Georgia and Florida, and we make a difference in Georgia and Florida. And so we are proud of the races that were run in Georgia and Florida. We are not as happy about the tactics that were used in Georgia and Florida, but as you know, there are recounts that are going on. This race here, just to give you an example, right now, where we are right now in Florida, it's 49.6 to 49.2, and so those votes are being recounted as we speak. Domingo's going to talk to you about the results from the Latino point of view. I want to talk to you a little bit about them from the black point of view and what's important to me when I look at these results. When I look at these results, and you know what's interesting is when I searched today for African-American voter turnout, Latino voter turnout came up several times. Could not tell you what the African-American voter turnout was. And in every election, since I've been at the Urban League, where I've been tracking it, it takes weeks and months before someone will even do a story about the African-American voter turnout. People do focus on the Latino voter turnout. It's a hot issue. It's that people want to know. But I will tell you from the black lens, it just doesn't generate the same amount of attention. We talk about it, but when you look at this, so what I had to use tonight to even make my point of what I think the African-American turnout was, I had to use the exit polling. And I had to just show you the fact that African Americans made up 11% of the votes that were cast in the midterm election. And I think that's pretty good. We're 13% of the population. We made up 11. It's not our highest, but we definitely fought above our weight. We definitely fought above our weight. We are not the most populous minority in this country in any stretch of the imagination, but yet we make up just about half of the minority population who voted in the last election. What's more important for my point is look at the way we vote. 90% of African Americans voted Democratic, compared to about 70% of the Latino Americans voted Democratic, 77% of the Asians, and other races, 54%. So from our point of view, we see, because of the way our people voted, that this new election, this new Congress, this Democratic House should represent for us something very, very positive. Because we put our eggs in one basket. Rightful or wrongful, we do. We do. When you break it down by gender, you will see that the sisters and the brothers are the most loyal voters for Democrats by far. By far. 88% of black men voted Democratic. 92% of African American women voted Democratic. We put our eggs in one basket, Marcus. For good or for bad, that's what we do. So we see this new election, we being African Americans, not the Urban League, we're not partisan. But we see this race, as this should be good for us. This should be good for us because we have put our eggs in the Democratic basket, and we've gone above and beyond to support that ticket. So let's talk about what that even means historically. We could have potentially 9 new members of the CBC. Mr. Delgado, who's an Afro-Latino, we're not sure yet if he's going to caucus with the CBC and or the CHC. It's a good problem to have. Then we got Afro-Latinos, and we don't know if they're going to be black or they're going to be Latino or both. And the caucuses need to deal with that, because that's America. All shades. All shades. So I'm excited about that. I can't wait to see how he caucuses and what he does. And I hope both caucuses will accept him if that's what he chooses. But we've got so many new African Americans who are elected to Congress, and many of these people picked up Republican seats. These are not African American majority seats. Our people are representing other people because they're competent and ran good races. So we're excited about that. As you know, we've got more women in this Congress than we will ever have before. A lot of work to do. but definitely moving in the right direction. These numbers change. Some of you are sitting there, oh, that number's going up. I know, I can't keep updating the slide because women keep winning each and every day, which is a good thing. I do want to talk about 2 amendments that were on ballots in the states that were important to us as African Americans. In Florida, we're going to see 1.5 million people who have paid their debt to society be allowed to vote in the next election. Maybe we won't have to recount next time if they vote. And in my home state of Louisiana, and I'm very proud of it, Louisiana had a Jim Crow statute that said that if you were on trial, in a criminal trial, the jury didn't have to be unanimous, right? So there was 2 black jurors and 10 white jurors, and the 2 blacks said, no, that guy is innocent, that brother is innocent, that sister is innocent. But the 10 whites said, no, he did it. Those 10 white people could send that person to prison. And only 2 states in the union even still allowed that. And so we struck that down in Louisiana. And I'm so proud of my former colleagues there who did that. But now, finally, we're in lockstep. And that's one of the most important criminal justice statutes to pass in a long time. So there were wins, even on the state level, that I wanted to brag about. So what does it mean? Where's the Urban League? What are we looking at? We are looking at who the chairman and the chairwoman are going to be in the new Congress. In the Senate, not much will probably change other than the Democrats may lose a seat on some of the committees. And people are going to have to understand the importance of consequences in an election. The Democrats could lose a seat on judiciary. Kamala Harris might come off of judiciary. She was the last on. That could happen. It could happen. That's how it works in the legislature. What's more important is in the House, what we're going to see, and what the Latino community is going to see, and what even the Asian American community is going to see, we're going to see some chairwomen who represent us. We're going to see in the African American community, Bobby Scott will become the chairman of Education and Workforce, probably. We're going to see Maxine Waters is going to become the chair lady of Financial Services, probably, right? And this could change. Mr. Cummings is going to become the chairman of Oversight and Government Reform. We know Eddie Bernice Johnson will probably become the chairwoman of Science, Space, and Technology. Nydia Velasquez is going to become the chair of Small Business again. And so we've got some great movement, we think, that's going to happen, that some of our friends, some of the people that we've known for many, many years, who've paid their dues, earned their seniority, they're going to be chairpersons of committees that matter. What's not shown on this graph is all the chairpersons we're going to get on the subcommittees. Lacey Clay is going to go back to the chair and going to make sure that the census, and that's what we've got to work on it, Mr. Garcia. That's our next fight. The census is properly funded, and that they don't have stupid questions on the census to scare people from answering the census, right? And so now we're going to hopefully have friends who get what we've been saying for the last couple of years. So we are paying attention at the Urban League for these new chairmen and women and hoping that they're going to do the right thing. This is what we're hearing that the Democrats may focus on, right? We hope that these issues are taken: ethics reform, voting rights. Just about every minority was suppressed this election. There was an equal opportunity suppression that went on in America, right? Native Americans were suppressed, Latino Americans were suppressed, black people were suppressed, poor white people were suppressed. If there was ever a need and a desire to pass a Voting Rights Act, to restore the rights that were taken away in 2013 in the Shelby decision, we should be pushing that Democratic majority to do it. We should be pushing them. Infrastructure, minimum wage, prescription drug prices, criminal justice reform, census, and immigration. All important issues. And again, I'm sure Mr. Garcia will tell you what issues are important to LULAC as well. But these are the issues that we're working on, and these are the issues that we will be pushing with the new Congress. This is going to be the Urban League federal agenda, more likely than not, for 2019. We're going to continue focusing on criminal justice reform. We want to see true, real criminal justice reform, sentencing reform, and prison reform. We're going to work on voting rights. Small business is important. I could go on and on about this. African Americans still in the entrepreneurship space, we own very little. We control very little of our own destiny in the African American. We built the country. We did it for free. Then we did it for reduced prices during sharecropping and Jim Crow. And here we are, we still own very little. We own very little. And so we're hoping that we can expand some of this. We're going to continue to get people jobs, focus on education and housing and healthcare. And then more importantly, very importantly, and I want to show you these appropriations. If you're wondering what these appropriations, I told you the Urban League, we have programs. And so we do a program for re-entering citizens who are re-entering from prison. We do a youth mentoring program. We do housing counseling for people, all shapes and sizes, all makes and models of people can come through our doors. We do an HIV/AIDS prevention program. We do a jobs training program for senior citizens. And we do urban apprenticeships. And so we receive money from the federal government to do these programs. And we do them very well. We're going to be working with our Democratic and our Republican friends. We got a great lobbyist, see him in the back. We're going to be working with our Democratic and our Republican friends to make sure that we get this funding renewed and hopefully increased so we can even do more good for more people.